Hello listeners and welcome to another week of Chasm Converses. This week my guest is Robby Heart, professional wrestler, musician and someone who inspired me to start wrestling back in the day. We talk wrestling, touring and training and we have some laughs along the way. Let's get conversing.
Chasm Converses.
On my podcast, Chasm Converses, I'm super stoked to have you on. I've had actually, I had Hjalmar on not so long ago either.
Oh, right. Cool.
So
My
I'm sort
pleasure.
of slowly getting some more wrestlers and stuff involved.
It's good to catch up again, isn't it?
Yeah. Awesome, I love it, man. But yeah, no, I'd love to talk to you a lot about the thing that you've been doing for so much of your life in professional wrestling, and the thing that's really cool about this, despite the fact that we're basically in the storeroom right now, we're in the Wrestle Around Face Dojo.
We are, yeah.
It's been obviously moved around from a few places and all that sort of thing, but this is the current one, and I've obviously trained in here. You've done quite a bit of stuff in here as well, and it is like, I think every dojo that we're in is always like a bit of a boiler room aspect. There's never any real...
Yeah. I've been naked in this very room on multiple occasions, so that's pretty cool.
This was the backstage area at one point.
It is, we for the dojo shows that we run and stuff, so it just happened to be the most convenient place for us to catch up, right?
It's perfect, because I was slightly worried because obviously we share it with the gym, and I was like, man, I hope it's not going to be too much like banging and clanging and all that sort of thing. But
we're all good.
It works out perfectly well, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to sort of launch into the fact that, you've been a pro wrestler for so much of your life, and one of the most well-known ones in Adelaide, especially in Robby Heart. So I'd love to know how you sort of got your start in wrestling, like when you started wrestling from a young age, and like who your influences were sort of growing up and what sort of launched you into it.
Yeah, sure. So obviously been wrestling for about, I don't know, just over 17 years, I guess, and it all started back in 2005. I'd always kind of had an interest in wrestling. I wasn't really playing a lot of sport at the time. I'd kind of just finished playing like Aussie Rules. I went to uni. I was just looking for something to really keep myself active. And then, like, funnily enough, like some friends of mine who I were in a band with, they did a band practice with Grim. He was trying out on vocals, right? And he was like, "Oh, do you guys like pro wrestling?" And they were like, "Oh, whatever." But our mate loves it.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, you should tell him to come out to this show." So I went out to this show. It was at Unley High School. It was all very just like, like, what am I going to be seeing? Like, what kind of level of
sort of, like,
skill? Are these guys like super jacked? I was just like, what am I going to see? So I went out, and it was just like, it was a pretty cool show. It wasn't RCW. It was whatever they were running before then.
Yeah.
And it was like really cool. I actually noticed one of the dudes from high school, so I kind of like had a chat with him afterwards.
Oh, brilliant.
And I was just like, I think I might like come to a tryout or like come start training or whatever. And then I think like maybe 2 months later, I finally had the time to go and start training, which was actually at City Gym at the time. Yeah. And then, the old stomping grounds for Wrestle Rampage. So they were training there at the time. They were going through a transition phase into becoming RCW, and that's where it kind of all started. I got moved along very quickly. Like trained for maybe 2 months. They let me do a battle royal. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was confident enough to get through a battle royal, I think, and it went pretty well. And then I debuted, I think, following in the proper singles in January of 2006 against Chris Basso, who was Mimic at the time, and I was like, super nervous. I was like,
absolutely.
I can't do this.
Yeah.
He was really cool. He took good care of me, and then from there, just kind of like we stayed with them for about 6 months, and then I think through the grapevine, I didn't know much about the local scene. Someone kind of started mentioning a guy called Jag Hartley Jackson, and I was like, well, where is he? They're like, he's in Japan. And I was like, oh, so what's his deal? He's going to come back and start a school. And I was like, oh, Japan, like international stuff.
Yeah. I
was like, well, that's kind of probably where I really want to be. I want to try and train with people who are going to be able to, get me overseas in a way. I moved over. It's not the easiest thing to do, to leave a promotion. I didn't know much about the politics of wrestling back then, but everything's pretty smooth now, obviously.
Yeah,
but yeah,
hopefully
so
there's a bit more of an easy transition.
well, it's cool. I actually wrestled with RCW again last year.
That was
which
one of my questions
yeah,
too.
yeah.
'Cause,
We'll get to that, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm so keen to hear about that.
So so obviously started with Jag and yeah, it was EPW Explosive Pro Wrestling Adelaide at the time, which is like a branch from Explosive Pro Wrestling Perth.
Yes,
they were going to have like a big, working relationship. It all seemed really cool. So that was mid 2006, and then the rest is history, man. Like we've had a whole bunch of name changes. Went to National Wrestling Alliance Australia, 01 Australia.
That's right. Yes.
And then Wrestle Rampage. I don't know exactly what order, but eventually became Wrestle Rampage.
Yeah,
I feel like we've been in that for a while now.
I think that's the right order, because I remember I saw when it was NWA. That's when I first saw you guys perform.
Yep.
Because it was a Thebby show, I think it was.
Yeah, right.
And you were the main wrestler that I remember, because you wrestled, I think, twice that night.
Oh.
For that cup, I think it was.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that must have been like 2009.
It was around, I think it was
Far out.
2009. I went there with a school friend of mine, and Jason Cooper faced Jag in like a bull rope match in the main event. That was crazy, because he was doing like swanton bombs off like, off like the balconies and stuff. Like,
Jason Cooper was pretty next level.
Absolutely. But no, because and then obviously when it came to 01, I think it only just moved into City Gym, and I think it maybe transitioned to Rampage around the time I was there. But
I think another thing was like the RCW guys. It was when I started training there. It was like in the city, and then they moved their facility to, I think it was like out north, the Snake Pit factory,
around the Wingfield area,
with a guy called Tony Stone. He was a really cool guy, and then but Jag said, I'm going to open up here in the city, and I was like, oh man, like, I literally worked on Curry Street. Like I wanted to be able to walk to training after work. It was just like so much more convenient.
Definitely.
And it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So started with Jag, and 17 years goes past, and here we are.
Absolutely. Did you build a lot of influences out of like wrestling when you started getting into it? Because obviously, I guess you would have to sort of look at some or watch some wrestling. Other people kind of.
It was kind of hard, I guess. Like I like watched a lot of wrestling as a kid. Like I'm talking like 80s, early 90s when it was pretty unpopular, and I kind of had like a break. From probably 98. I was a huge Shawn Michaels fan.
Awesome.
So when Shawn Michaels kind of retired, I kind of got out of it a bit. But, still kept up to date with things. Obviously things were pretty popular in 99, so it was quite easy to watch the content. And then he came back in 2002 or something, and that was really cool. But when it came time for me to get like a look, I didn't know what I was doing, man. They said like you're going to wrestle, and I think I went to like a local like army disposal shop and bought like a pair of camo pants, and I had like a camo hat and a like a white singlet.
Just trying to build the costume.
I didn't know what I was even trying to look like, man. I thought that was cool. I didn't really have any like influences from any like pro wrestlers at that given time. I just thought this is what I want to wear, and I wore that for the whole time I did RCW, and then came over to EPW, and I was like, I got to look like a pro wrestler.
Yeah,
and absolutely. I think I just saw like AJ Styles at the time. I saw, this guy's pretty cool, like short shorts and kick pads and stuff. So I was like, well, I'll just morph into that, and I think I've stuck with that for the last 16 years now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome, man. It's so cool to see from the start all the way through, and influence
in different forms, I guess. You got different add little patterns and stuff in. But I try to keep it pretty simple. I think I think as I've gotten tattooed and all that kind of stuff, that was always kind of a bit more of the focal point for me rather than the gear I was wearing. But it works, so just keep using it.
Absolutely, no, and it would be so cool just to sort of gather the experience of being in the ring and wrestling different sorts of people all throughout the time of obviously being in different venues and different companies.
Obviously when I got to EPW Adelaide, I started doing a bit of interstate work. Queensland was my first trip.
Wow.
Melbourne, all that kind of stuff, and I did Japan my first time in 2011, I think.
Yeah, so, I'd love to hear about Japan.
Things happen pretty quickly to a degree. I kind of always split time between pro wrestling and music as well, especially in those days. So it was always kind of hard to do to commit to both as 100%.
I know exactly what you mean.
But I tried, and I made it work somehow. So I still got to do a lot of cool stuff, and I still am. So that's
the best part of it, man. I'd love to hear about the time you spent over in Japan wrestling and all that sort of stuff. Because obviously, especially down here with Rampage, we're used to a very sort of like, I guess you could call it just intense training program with how we do our cardio and our wrestling itself. I think Japan, I've heard that Japan is similar in that respect. Hence why we do
so obviously Jag did a stint with New Japan, the LA dojo back in 2006. And then, he obviously brought a lot of those principles here, a lot of like squat training, rolls and things like that. A lot of those things are pretty much commonplace now all over the place because that's just become the norm. But Jag was the first one to kind of really bring it to Adelaide. And, it's bloody hard, like, the first time you do it, like, far out, man, like, 500 squats when you haven't done that stuff. No matter how fit you are.
Yeah, exactly.
You just, like, wake in the morning and you're like, what the hell did I just do,
It's crazy,
The push-ups and things like that, I've always kind of been pretty cool with that, like, but no one prepares themselves for squats, man. No. I remember I did the card game, like, my first session, I could not believe how hard it was, but, that was the good part about it. Like, the training was intense, the cardio was hard, and you felt like you were training like an athlete, I guess. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I guess the training over there is very similar in that respect. I mean, the cardio game is brutal. I remember doing so many lion squats. Lion push-ups.
Lion push-ups,
Lion.
Yeah.
That's the running joke. But
But
even so, it's brutal. But there's such a camaraderie that gets built out of all that. And I think you get to a point when you are doing. Well, I don't know about you, but when I was doing the squats back in the day, I'd get to a point where I'd get to maybe 150, almost the 200, and you sort of lose all the feeling in your legs, so you don't really...
You just
don't really feel it.
Go on an autopilot, don't you?
You just kind of keep on going.
It's good when you get to that point, because that never really goes away, to be honest. You can come back like 3 or 4 months after not doing squats, and you can just get straight back into it again. But obviously being in Japan... Jag had somehow or other, he did a pro wrestling expo in 2008, started a working relationship with a guy called Nakamura.
Yes.
Mr. Nakamura, of course, who was one of the big wigs at 01 at the time. And he obviously came over and watched a few shows. I was super lucky to get an opportunity. Wrecking Ball Wilson got the first opportunity.
Yeah.
Slater, a whole bunch of us got to go over and train and feel the... what it was like. And it was cool because when I was there, a guy called Super Crazy from WWE was touring at the same time.
Yeah, shit.
So Hidaka, who's the head trainer at 01, was getting married, so Super Crazy took over a lot of the sessions. So we were doing like lots of cool like lucha stuff, and the cardio was very similar to what we do here, so I was completely prepared for it.
Yeah, oh wow.
But it was fun. Yeah, it was a really good experience. I think I did about a month my first time. Yeah. And then the next year I came back for a couple of weeks, and because I was doing like the junior tournament over there. But at the same time, I think I kind of realised like what level I was at, because you over there going against guys who are like, full-time pro wrestlers.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I was just like, okay, well I need to get better. Like, these guys are a level above me. I can do lots of cool things really well, but there's a lot of things that I still couldn't do that well. And I knew that I had to kind of improve, and I kind of like worked on that when I got back to trying to get better at certain things. I went to Canada like a few years later, and that was kind of all about trying to improve in certain aspects of what I could do.
How was the wrestling over in Canada? Like, you played some real play.
Yeah.
You wrestled some really good venues in front of like student people and stuff.
In Canada was cool. I went over with Ash Istria. Like, we kind of agreed that we were going to do like some kind of like wrestling trip to somewhere, and I let him kind of organise where he wanted to go. Yeah. And he wanted to go wrestle with Santino Morella's Battle Arts School, which is actually the head trainer was Ishikawa there, who's a Japanese wrestler, Japanese wrestling legend who had battle arts in Japan, but he relocated to Canada to be a head trainer. Right. And a lot of their styles, like the shoot style wrestling, like legit like a proper submission style. Yeah. And stuff that I was terrible at, like so bad. And I didn't even know really what I was getting myself into. Like the first day, like we had a session with Ishikawa, and he was just like, folding me up, man. It was just like, It was. He thought it was so funny. I got beat up, man. And Ash thought it was quite funny because he's obviously a very accomplished submission wrestler, and that's his style that he's obviously. Whereas me, I was just like, look, I need to want to just understand it a little bit better. Yeah. So I was there training with him, and just kind of like wrapping my head around it all, whereas he was just like in his element. And then we'd always get to do shoot fighting at the end, and he just beat me like 9 times out of 10. And I was just like, fuck, but I get him eventually.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but it was good. It was good, a good experience. Santino had just been released from WWE, but he was so super nice to us.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they just called us the Aussies.
Yeah.
And they put us in a tag, I think, with a couple of their really green guys.
Right, okay.
Kid called Ryan Cartwright, who I'm still friends with in Canada. He's a really cool guy. Yeah. And another gentleman, I can't feel bad for not remembering his name. But yeah, they were very green, and I think a few of the more experienced guys were like, oh, you know, you get to wrestle the rookies, you're gonna have fun out there. But we were like super into it because we were like, no, we want to make these kids look amazing.
Yeah.
So we just like set out to just make them look great, and I think that's what we did. Like Santino was like super pumped. And then we got an opportunity to wrestle for another promotion over there, Destiny, which is pretty cool.
Okay, sweet.
In Canada. This is in Mississauga, which is like a suburb or city outside of Toronto.
Oh, cool.
So that's where we're all based.
Right.
So it was about 2 months of solid, training, a few shows. It was kind of like we tried to make us some contacts while we were there. Years later, Sam Osborne and another bloke from Sydney, they went over. The other guy got signed eventually.
Wow, okay.
WWE,
awesome.
NXT UK. So yeah, it was cool because we were like kind of the first ones, and those guys got to go over, and they stayed for like over 12 months, so they really made the most of it, which is good. I came back to Australia for about 3 weeks. That was in 2016.
Right.
And then I went over and did a Michinoku Pro Tour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So that was like a good chance. I hadn't been in Japan for 5 years, so it was good to finally be back and have a little bit more confidence in myself, a bit more understanding of the Japanese style, because you definitely need a few trips to, get it, wrap your head around it and all that. So yeah, and that was cool. So I did it then, and then I went back in 2018, did another tour with Michinoku Pro, which was really cool. And then COVID stopped everything, and haven't been back since, unfortunately.
Yeah, but even so, wrestling can take you to some just amazing places and just
look at
so many different people.
No, like I said, like Ash Istria, like he went did some stuff in Europe and UK, some Rev Pro, WXW Germany. A lot of these guys here have travelled. Obviously guys in Sydney and Melbourne are doing New Japan stuff. It's amazing. Guys have been signed to WWE. Like when I started wrestling, WWE was like pie in the sky stuff, and now we've got like Bronson Reed and all that. So it's amazing.
Jag's done his work over there as well, which is awesome.
Jag was a trainer. Rhea Ripley, obviously. It's amazing. I'm super happy for those guys because they deserve it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I'd love to circle back now to the present day when it comes to like yourself and wrestling for quite a few different promotions, which is quite nice. Obviously, you did a bit of a stint with RCW, still doing some wrestling here, which is cool as well. I think, have you been interstate recently as well?
I did a couple of stuff, a little bit in Melbourne last year. A little bit harder for me now, being, there's a lot of other guys, doing those things. I'm kind of like, if I can get the opportunity, I'm more than happy to do it.
Yeah.
I don't probably pursue it as much as I used to, but the RCW thing was really cool. I hadn't worked with those guys in years, and I got to come back and do a one night tournament thing with the Basso brothers, and that was really cool. Like, to wrestle the two guys that I initially started training with back in 2005. It was just like old times, man. They were really cool. Oh. It was such a good night. I was so chuffed. It was definitely one of the highlights for me, 2022. And I did I forgot, I did a few months later, I went to Tumby Bay and did the Outback tour.
Yeah.
That was so cool because I live in Whyalla, right?
Yeah.
Which is about 4 hours out of Adelaide, and they were literally going to Tumby Bay, which is about 2 hours further towards like Port Lincoln, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So we did a show there, and then one the day before in another country town. Can't remember the name.
That's so awesome.
They
were traveling country towns doing.
Yeah, it was like the Raw show there kind of thing, like on a very smaller scale. So did like a whole bunch of matches that day. Got to wrestle some new guys. Really cool vibes. Then we spent the night in Tumby Bay, and that's like a really cool coastal town, and wrestled there. The next day it was like the guy that put on the event. He literally like there was like the pub. There was like the the car park at the back, and then there was like the house that he grew up in.
Oh, wow.
So we were like hanging in his house where he wrestled, where he grew up,
Yeah.
and like they just set up an entranceway from like the side of the house straight out
Oh, wow.
into
really?
the car park where there's like 400 people waiting to watch us
Wow.
wrestle. It was amazing, yeah. And I got to wrestle
brilliant.
like some really cool guys from RCW, like Matt Hayter, yeah, Red Shaw. It was really good. So yeah, I had a really good weekend. It was really good fun, and I got to wrestle another guy from Adelaide, like from another promotion at Power Slam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, Power Slam. Yeah, cool.
So that was really cool early in the year. That was yeah, just trying to like do the rounds a little bit more as I
Yeah.
get older, especially in South Australia.
Absolutely. It's great that there are quite a few wrestlers that
yeah.
are going to other promotions
Yeah,
wrestling all together.
and that's just another thing with like trying to do interstate stuff. I got to come from Whyalla, which is a fair trek.
Yeah,
where I'm
exactly.
living these days, and then find my way to other cities and all that. But yeah, I'm sure something will come up at some stage, and just roll with it, man.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so cool that, there's just, as I said, wrestling gives you so many cool opportunities to wrestle in
Yeah.
different places in front of
Traveling's
different people,
fun, yeah,
even
definitely.
in the countries and stuff. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. When it comes to, obviously, wrestling so many nights a week and all the rest of it, I'm sure you've probably had your fair share of kind of injuries and all that sort of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Have you had some really bad ones?
The only real serious one I had was a training one here. We were just doing a basic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, were you here for that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Just basically, off the edge of the apron onto the ground, I'm straight onto my shoulder.
Oh,
I do
wow.
what they call like an AC joint separation, which is like this bone here.
Yeah.
They basically just, the ligament snapped.
Wow.
So I was just like, I was like moving my arm, I could feel the bone moving.
Yeah.
So I'm like, great. So I had to like drive to the hospital with like one arm.
Yeah, classic.
Because it's just down the road.
Yeah,
So I
not
was like,
bad.
I can handle this. It was just like excruciating. That's honestly, that was more my fault than anything else.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a bad hyperextension one time. I think probably maybe some concussions. I don't know, but
Yeah. Can't remember those.
I've been pretty lucky. I really have.
Yeah,
so-
it's crazy how sometimes in wrestling you can have so many like matches in so many places, so many different people, different
Yeah.
sizes, all the rest of it. And sometimes the injuries come at like the easiest places when you're training,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
just
yeah,
really
yeah.
simple spots. So
Yeah, that was the
crazy.
shoulder injury kept me out of a match, and that was probably the first time I think in 15 years that I had to miss a show because of injury.
yeah, okay, damn.
But I only missed one show, which was cool. I came back and it was like about 3 months, but there was like only one show in that time period, and I missed that, and then came back for the next one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you. I mean, obviously you've had so many, but do you have a match that's like your favorite, or one that you always kind of go back to that you've done before?
So hard to do that, man.
Yeah, I know.
I
it's
just
like that.
always just kind of think to myself like, look, make your next match your best one. you know?
Yeah.
And I'm normally always like, I get to wrestle cool people all the time.
Yeah.
Especially like here in Australia, there's like so many talented wrestlers. But there's no particular one match that stands out. I got like a few guys like who I reckon I've got like the best like chemistry with.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like my best match, I just think, just look forward to the next one.
Yeah,
Don't
it's a
ever.
great
I'm
one
never
sometimes.
really content. To be honest, if I ever watch myself wrestle, I'll just pick on the one thing that was like.
Yeah.
You
Just
could have been.
critique
You didn't
it.
throw that punch as well. Or you didn't run the ropes fast enough.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm just my harshest critic, man. I'm
Yeah.
just so hard on myself.
Yeah.
You could watch a match that you would assume is like really good, but I'd be like, nah, I didn't do that properly.
Yeah. I can bring
I
up
don't-
one match that I do remember myself just because it was my first, I think it was the first show that I was at.
Yep.
As in like when I joined Wrestle Rampage, it was at Fowler's. It was one of those band burlesque and brawl
Oh, yep,
ones.
yep.
And I think it was you and Jag in a hardcore like ladder match.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it
Yeah.
was fucking awesome. I remember because I was like behind the stage. I was just like the runner or something, and I was
Yeah.
just watching behind the stage with my
Yeah,
head picking
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Just like you and Jag just going absolutely to town on each other.
Yeah, yeah,
And
no, they were
there's
good
a photo
matches.
somewhere on some old set like Nokia 45. I have a photo or
Yeah.
something of you guys
Yeah,
up
yeah.
just absolutely just beaten and blown and whatever. But
Yeah.
just the highest of spirits.
Yeah, so obviously, he was one of those guys who I obviously had good chemistry with, and he lives in Japan now, so maybe one day we'll get to do it again before it's too late.
That's it. I'd also love to touch on your musical side because you are also
Sure.
a bit of a band guy, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
right?
I was a band guy.
Yes.
Yep.
I remember you from the Dead Joe days.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, I remember you seeing you at a few shows.
Yeah,
that was the last
awesome.
band that I did. That was like a pretty cool goth punk rock band.
Yeah.
That I did with my good friends Mick and Will. I'm not a guitarist by any stretch of the imagination. I played bass for like 15 years. And I managed to convince them that I could play guitar for their band.
Awesome.
Just because I wanted to play and join the band. So
I never knew that. I just thought you were the guitarist.
yeah, well, I initially they had another bloke playing lead, and their rhythm guitarist left and moved to Singapore, Trent. And I was like, no, I can do it. You know, it's just power chords, man. You guys are just detuned. It's like a bass anyway. Yeah. So yeah, they let me try out, and I was just like, I can play rhythm guitar quite. Easy. Anyone can. Well, not anyone. Yeah, and they were like, oh, that's cool. You can, you're definitely in. And we did like 2 gigs as a 4-piece, and the lead guitarist like took off. Oh. And Mick was just like, well, you're going to just have to play everything now. I was like, are you out of your mind, dude? I was like, I'm not a guitarist, man. I'm going to be the only guitarist.
Straight on the spot.
It was just, but I don't know. I think I managed to cover it all right. Do you reckon I did okay?
Yeah. I loved it. It was great. Yeah. I think there was one gig where you guys played with like Release the Hounds, who I think are now Shut Up.
Yeah. I remember them. Yeah.
And Mayweather, I think, were headlining, or something like that. The Cranker.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just fucking sick.
Awesome.
I love this.
Thank you. Yeah, no, they were good times, man. And I really wanted to just I love playing shows. I love performing, obviously. And Dejo, they played heaps at the time. And we got to do like some touring. We were in Melbourne like every second weekend.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, just like that's all I ever really want to do. Like I love Melbourne as a city. I'd live there in a heartbeat if I could. And so being there all the time for gigs and obviously wrestling as well. Fitting it all in was a little bit tricky at the time, like especially Dead Joe was like really picking up momentum with like shows and stuff like that. But it was like a great time of my life.
Yeah, and sometimes when they do pick up shows and stuff, it does sort of start to intercept a little bit of what life is. I obviously know that as well. From
exactly. And got to do some cool supports, like Misfits was like the highlight for me. That would have been amazing. Jerry Only and the Misfits was like cool. But it was still cool. It was such an experience, man. I had the flu though, that's what I do remember, so that kind of stuffed it up for me, but it was still excellent. Yeah, and obviously before that I'd done like, I don't know, 10 different bands.
Wow.
I started playing in bands as a teenager and playing some very crusty, horrible metalcore bands as a kid and tried my hand at some hardcore stuff, and then I did some like glam rock punk band called The Idols back in 2006. That was just like so obnoxious.
My brain's just like, oh my god, this is great.
Man, you probably weren't around at that point.
I wasn't. No, I mean I wasn't even touching music at that point. 06, so I wouldn't like.
There was a few old photos of me, floating around on my Instagram, covered in makeup and holding fishnet stockings, and I don't know what the hell I was thinking. We just wanted to be cool. It worked. Like we used to play to some pretty gnarly crowds, I got to admit. But that band turned to shit very quickly. I just jumped around in a few bands. If something pissed me off, I'll just move on. I wasn't trying to make it big or anything. I think the coolest thing about Dead Joe was like I finally actually just got what I wanted out of music, was to just play with some friends that I loved and be able to just travel in Australia, and that's all I ever really wanted, man. Like, not like I was trying to take it any further than that. And unfortunately, like Dead Joe stopped pretty abruptly in like 2017, and I think I've been trying to convince them since to try and play a show again.
Oh, sure, for sure. Like,
I wouldn't even remember any of the songs, but we've got some stuff on Spotify and YouTube
that's
and all
still
that.
Up there. I know. Yeah, look, and they're great songs too.
Yeah, I think I only really recorded like 1 or 2 songs, which is like right at the end of the band. And I don't think I even did leads, but whatever. I was in it just for a good time. We're still really close friends today. We're actually
that's brilliant.
We're doing a Melbourne road trip in a few weeks' time, so we still like to do things like that, and that's like friendships I'll hold on to for the rest of my life. So.
It's the best thing with being a performer as well, man. Like, there's just so much camaraderie in performing with a bunch of people, or obviously around the whole sort of scene. So, and you do make friends for life. Like,
so such like-minded people, and funny that me and the singer were dating twins at the time, which is crazy. And then, but I was like, we're going to Melbourne, and I'm like, oh, how about we do some gigs? They're like, how about no? I was like, all right. It's all good.
Just keep pressing, you never know what can happen.
Yeah. We literally have not practiced there since the band stopped, and I'm just like, look, that's okay, man. Like, I was ready to go to the next phase of my life, and
Yeah, absolutely.
No problem.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
This has been so fucking cool, man, to have just to sit down with you.
Yeah,
and just chat.
I feel like we could just keep doing this for like hours on end.
I know,
That's really
it's,
easy.
It's awesome.
We can do a part 2 one time, maybe.
We can, yeah. The photo 6. So we have a mutual friend, Jack Hartley.
Yeah,
and
yes.
I did a podcast with him not too long ago, and he literally said the same thing.
Yeah,
We could have to do a part 2 when you
Yeah,
come back.
definitely.
Like, oh yeah, absolutely. To build on from
Just
that.
touching on the, you know, the content now, we can keep going. But no, it's been really fun. I really appreciate you wanting to chat. It's nice to hang out and catch up with you. Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you all so much for listening to our episode this week. For more, subscribe to our socials and check back every week for a brand new conversation with a new guest. We'll see you right here on Chasm Converses.